Hey there everyone, my name is Luke. This is the Outdoor Gear Review. Now today I have a problem. This military tent right here leaks and I have to solve that problem. So this episode is all about repairing a leaking tent. A few months back I did a military surplus overnight adventure with this tent and it was leaking from one of the top seams. Which one, I'm not entirely sure, so I'm going to treat every single seam. With this process, I am going to show you the easiest way to go about doing it. What I have always used for seam sealing is this product, Seam Grip. It works very, very well. You can find this online just about anywhere. It's very inexpensive. Now, when you go out to purchase this, you can find all sorts of kits. The kits, for the most part, are absolutely worthless, especially those that feature the tube and the attachment brush. These right here, they suck. That makes the biggest mess in the entire world. Do not use that. What you want to get yourself is one of these. This is a 12 milliliter curved tip syringe. Essentially what we are going to do is take the Seam Grip, pour it into here, put the plunger back in, and then we can use that tip to go directly over the seams. It's the best way to go about seam sealing your tent. In addition to the syringe, what you want to use is an acid brush. Think of this as like a small little paintbrush, makeup brush, whatever. You can find these super inexpensively online, and the same goes here for the syringe. Of course, make sure to have some paper towels. Those will come in very handy. I'm going to take the Seam Grip, take the lid, punch a hole in it. Then I'm going to squeeze the contents into the syringe itself. Do not fill it all the way up so you have room for the plunger. Get out the air pocket. If you do not get the air out, it will continue to push all of this Seam Grip out. So there you go. With all of that being said, it is time to get to work. Before I begin, let's go over some quick tips for you all. Do this in the shade if at all possible. If not, limit the amount of time that the tent is exposed to the sun because the sunlight will break down the components of the tent itself and also the seam sealing. UV light, bad when it comes to tents. Next, in almost all cases, you will seam seal the outside. Essentially, you are going over the thread and the holes that the sewing machines essentially put into the material. Very rarely do you have to seam seal the inside of a tent. Of course, there are some exceptions. It really does depend on how the tent is made. 99.9% of the time, seam sealing the outside is the way to go. I've seen people try to seam seal the inside and they make a huge mess. Just because most tents are seam sealed on the inside doesn't mean that you seam seal on the inside yourself. Those are essentially two different processes. One's done at a factory, the other is not. Trust me everyone, seam sealing the outside is very easy compared to the inside. The next tip involves setting up the tent. Make sure to get a very tight pitch. That is important. So set it up, pull everything nice and tight, stake it out. You want to be able to go over those seams very smoothly. You don't want that material flapping around or bunching up. Set it up, stake it out, pull it tight, and then you're good to go, just like I am now. Let's go ahead and get started. I have the syringe, I have the acid brush. I am going to start at the bottom, work my way up. I am hitting only the seams here. You do not have to worry about the other material. And as you can see there, because I'm using the syringe, I'm able to put the seam sealer exactly where I want it. It's not going all over the place. It's not making a huge mess. With the acid brush, I can essentially paint it on. This is by far the easiest way to go about this process. Every other method just makes a huge mess. Trust me, I know. I've made those huge messes before. Hopefully you can see here just how fast the syringe makes this process. Without a syringe, you just make such a mess. The Seam Grip just pours out. The brush attachment offers you no control over the flow. Whenever you do the seam, pull the plunger out slightly, and the Seam Grip will stop coming out. As you can see, we finished up this one seam. I'm moving to another, and I will continue to go all the way around the tent and then focus on the top last. Now, of course, you can start anywhere you want to. It really doesn't matter. That's just the way that I prefer to do it. Now, you may be wondering, Luke, how much seam grip do I use? Well, in truth, a little bit goes a long way. All that you have to do is cover up essentially where the needle went through the fabric. That is where the water's coming through. Now, it should be mentioned, folks, that when it comes to seam grip or your seam sealer, make sure to get the right type for your tent and the materials that your tent is made from. They do make different sealers for different materials. Now, you may be wondering how often you need to do this, and really, it is going to vary from tent to tent. In truth, it is going to depend on use and how quickly the seam sealing that's done at the factory breaks down. So it might be every 3 years, could be longer. Every situation and every tent is going to be different. Now, the benefits of using the syringe are many. You are going to make a much smaller mess than compared to other options. Also, since you're able to target those seams so specifically, the drying time is quite a bit less as well. Speaking of drying time, you will need to let this sit out. I recommend overnight if at all possible. For myself here, I will let this sit out as long as I'm at Lone Wolf Mountain. Then I will take this home and put this on my porch and let it dry. If you're going to leave this out overnight, make sure that it does not get wet. Make sure that dew does not form on it. If you are lucky enough to have a garage, that is going to make your life very, very easy. All in all, everybody, the seam sealing process, it's kind of fun. A lot of people are kind of scared of this process, but there's not much to it. As long as you do it the right way, you can make your life miserable. You can really make a huge mess. I've seen tents where people have used those brush attachments. Oh man, it's awful. Now, the seam sealing process is one that you should not have to do with like 95% of brand new tents. Most tents will come seam sealed. If your tent does happen to leak and it's under warranty, you could of course get the company to address it. Now, there are some cottage companies out there, smaller companies who do not have the resources to seam seal their tents, and in that case you will have to do it yourself. They may offer to do it for a small fee. It's whatever you want to do, of course. Now, if you're buying very, very inexpensive, cheap tents, you may want to go ahead and seam seal those. Cheaper the price, cheaper the quality, durability, and so on. So that is something that you need to keep in mind. As far as this goes, I'm getting pretty close to being done. I'm a little bit over halfway through, and I have not refilled this since I started. That means that I have over half a tube of seam seal left. Now, as I wrap this up, everyone, I'll give you all some more tips. With the acid brushes, you might as well throw those away. With the syringes, pull out the plunger, allow the material to dry, and you can pull out the excess seam grip. When it comes to these syringes, you can find these in packs of 4, 8, 12. Most of the time you can find these for under 10 bucks. The same goes for the acid brushes. You can find like boxes of 50 of those. You might be able to buy them in smaller numbers. Maybe. It will depend on where you look. No matter which tent that you are seam sealing, I recommend that you get 2 tubes just in case. 1 tube went over the entire light fighter tent, but it did use the entire tube. Because of that, I recommend that you have at least 2 tubes just in case. So folks, that is how you go about seam sealing a leaking tent. Something to keep in mind is that your tent and its leak may be a little bit different. I've gone over the seams here. If you have to, you can also seam seal all of the folds as well. That takes a little bit more work, but the process is the same. So if you're having an issue where it's not necessarily going through the top of the fabric, but one of those creases, you can solve it just as easy as this. Something else to keep in mind is that every couple of years you may want to reapply the waterproof coating for your tent. That's a very easy process as well. If you all have any questions for me, make sure to email me. If you have a comment, comment down below. If you like this episode, hit the thumbs up. That does help quite a bit. Support on Patreon if you want to, because this channel is 100% agenda-free. No store, no affiliate links. I'm not making money off the products you buy. It's not right. Everyone, take care, strength and honor. Bye.